From Boston, welcome to Off the Bench.
Hello everyone and welcome to Off the Bench. I'm Avi Kargloth. I'm joined by Ryan Ribeiro and Andrew Carter. Our first topic, we will start with the NFL. Several teams have lost big-name quarterbacks to injury this year, including the New Orleans Saints, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Jacksonville Jaguars. Now guys, which of these teams is in the best position to make the playoffs?
Well, it's really hard right now to not say the New Orleans Saints. Primarily because you look at the two teams they've beaten since Drew Brees has gone down. Obviously, they lost that game in Los Angeles to the Rams. They lost them halfway through. But Teddy Bridgewater has started for them against Seattle and Dallas to beat both of those teams. And if you look at the teams that they have ahead, they've got the Jags, the Cardinals, the Bucks, and you look at all those teams right now, and do any of them scare you as much as the Seahawks or the Cowboys would? My answer is no. And Teddy Bridgewater has been fantastic. Has not been fantastic, right? Hasn't thrown for over 200 yards. Doesn't really win the Saints games, but Alvin Kamara does. Michael Thomas is a great weapon to throw to. The defense has been great for them. So if I'm looking at a team that's positioned best, it's got to be the Saints and their weak division, especially the two teams they've beat for when Drew Brees comes back. They'll be in great position.
You talk about great position. I want to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Gardner Minshew has been, I wouldn't say fantastic since coming into the league for Nick Foles, but he's been very good. He's had at least 200 passing yards in every game he's been in thus far. And hey, that defense is still pretty elite. Big name guys, Calais Campbell, AJ Boye, Yannick Ngakoue, people like that can carry a game. And you talk about a weak schedule too. They've got games against the Bengals, Jets, Bucks, Raiders, and the Newtonless Panthers coming up. And they've lost a few close games that I think if Gardner Minshew had a few more reps with first-team offense, they probably would have won. That Texans game, for example, they won on a very poorly called two-point conversion play. So I really think that the Jaguars are pretty well positioned, especially in a weak AFC South, to take the division and maybe even make a run in the playoffs.
Listen, I love Gardner Minshew, Minshew Mania. That's my guy. If you walk off a plane with your button-up shirt pretty much unbuttoned down to your belly button, you're my guy. My issue here is, what's the difference between him and Blake Bortles, right? Because none of those guys necessarily win you games. So if you look at the Jaguars and you mentioned the Newtonless Panthers, they're 2-0 with Kyle Allen. And you look at the rest of their division, the Texans have been struggling, yes, but they're talented. Deshaun Watson and Nuke Hopkins, it's hard. That's a deadly duo right there. The Titans, say what you want about Marcus Mariota, and I will say what I want about Marcus Mariota, but they're winning games. And Jacoby Brissett and the Colts, they're not playing bad. So for me, my issue with the Jaguars is that Minshew doesn't necessarily win you games. He brings the swag, but that defense, without Jalen Ramsey actually wanting to be there, I'm not sure that the Jags are actually in a position to be a playoff contender when Nick Foles comes back.
You talk about division opponents. I mean, the Saints don't have a cakewalk division either. When the Falcons are on, they are on. I mean, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones went to the Super Bowl and darn near won it a few years ago.
But that's the team you picked out of all three of those. Out of all three of those teams, you picked the Falcons.
Atlanta has one win. You have a couple other teams that are making some noise in there. Tampa Bay.
I don't think the Panthers quarterback can take him far enough. I mean, yeah, he's got no. I mean, let's be frank. Kyle Allen was not good. He had 3 fumbles, and they won by, I don't want to say luck, but it was kind of lucky.
But what's the difference between Kyle Allen and any of the quarterbacks we just named? Kyle Allen wasn't, you say good. I wouldn't say Teddy Bridgewater's been good. I wouldn't say Gardner Minshew's been good. I wouldn't say Chase Daniel's been good or Mason Rudolph. But all those teams are winning games. I think you have to look at it in terms of projecting the schedule forward and where these teams are going to be. And if you look at the Saints and you look at the two teams they just beat, that's got to be the biggest point if you're looking at the Saints moving forward for when Drew Brees comes back. They have 2 huge wins already. So why am I going to be sitting here worried about playing the Jaguars, the Cardinals, definitely not the Falcons, the Bucks? I'm not worried about any of those games because they just handled 2 teams that I would consider contenders to be in the NFC Championship game.
Okay, fair points, fair points. I liked the schedule argument that you had. I thought both were on point. We got to move on to Pro Hoops, the NBA. It was a frantic offseason in the association, headlined by 8 NBA All-Stars changing teams. With that being said, guys, which team with all this movement, has the most to prove this season?
It's got to be Showtime. After all the drama with AD, all the Lonzo Ball stories, the Brandon Ingram stories, they finally got Anthony Davis, and the pairing they've wanted with LeBron and AD is here. So now what are you going to do with it? You've retooled the roster. You've got names like Danny Green, Quinn Cook, and Troy Daniels, good bench players that can help a team make it to the championship, to the finals. And with the Warriors not as intact as they've been in years past, I think now is the time for the Lakers to prove, especially LeBron, that even though he's getting older, he can still carry a team to greatness.
Yeah, I get the Lakers are, a big name organization. You could say the same about the Clippers. They just got two new shiny objects as well. My take on this is you got to look at the team in Houston. You got to look at the Rockets. You trade away Chris Paul to OKC. In return, you got Russell Westbrook. Now, you've got a big three of Clint Capella, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook, like I mentioned. Those are two guys, the last two guys that I just talked about, have the biggest questions, I think, in all of the NBA. James Harden, he's an MVP. Yeah, he puts up 35, 36 points a game. That's fantastic. But can you win in the playoffs? Can you win? Can you lead your team when it matters? I don't know. Russell Westbrook, yeah, you can average a triple-double. But the second you lost Kevin Durant, what did you do? Answer, nothing. So now you're in Houston. What can you do to make this team a contender? It was always so easy. It was super easy to blame it on Chris Paul, right? Because he's never done anything in the playoffs. But now you've got a big three. Now you have a bona fide big three. Westbrook and Harden are back together. Both, I would argue, in the prime of their careers. It's time to step up if you're Houston. And if you don't, I don't know. I feel like it all crumbles apart.
I see what you're saying, especially with Harden and Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook not being proven playoff, elite players in the playoffs. But people were talking about when LeBron first got to LA that he could carry any team to the postseason. He did it with the Cavs for so many years. And when he got to LA, he had roughly the same cast around him, but he couldn't do it. And now people are starting to doubt whether LeBron can or can't bring a team like that to the playoffs. So now that he's retooled the roster with what most people are considering better players and a better supporting cast and a second superstar like he's always wanted, he needs to show that now he can return to that kind of dominant form.
I just think if you're a fan of the NBA, there's no question that LeBron James is a top 3 player in the league. There's no question about that. Last year he was injured for quite a while, and that ruined the Lakers' chance pretty much almost immediately. They were the 3 seed, boom, knocked out of the playoffs. And he was never the same when he came back. Anthony Davis, it's not like he's not one of the best big men in the game. I genuinely believe if you follow the NBA, there's not a question about what the Lakers can do. There's not a question if they can make the playoffs or not. It's, okay, how far can they really go? Can they beat the Warriors? Can they take on the Clippers? I think if you look at the Rockets, there's questions all over just because of the history of these guys. Because you can say names. You can watch them in the All-Star game. They'll put up insane numbers. But can they win? Right? That's why we watch the NBA. That's why you root on a team. If you're a Rockets fan, is it time to win? I think that's it. I think that's the question.
I'm surprised neither of you guys mentioned the 76ers. Like, you think like the process is coming to the end? Like all these years of losing, they need to be validated somehow. If they don't win it, like when will they? I don't know. I would have gone that way, especially with no LeBron in the East. Yeah. Anyways, we will finish up with baseball. The MLB postseason is now underway. Guys, who is the most important player in this year's October Classic? The World Series, the playoffs, all of it. Who's going to be the most valuable one?
This has to be the postseason of the Dodgers. It has to be. You can't go to 2 straight World Series, lose, and then come back and dominate the way they did all throughout the regular season, and then say, let's do it 3 years in a row. Why not, right? No, you can't do that. You can't do that. So the biggest X factor for me is Clayton Kershaw and Kenley Jansen. And I know everyone in LA, every Dodgers fan, is going to disagree with the fact that Clayton Kershaw is not good in the postseason. Guess what? He is. He's not. 3.4. Yeah, he's not good in the postseason. 4.32 ERA, 9-10 when it comes to the postseason. That's not good enough. He's not the type of guy. Because in the regular season, he's won how many Cy Youngs, right? In the regular season, he's the type of guy where he steps on the mound and the Dodgers go, okay, we could just mark down a W. That's fine. But why is it when the postseason comes around, it's all of a sudden a question of whether or not he can win for them or not? It's not. He's not Justin Verlander, and he's not Madison Bumgarner. So for the Dodgers, you need that type of guy because Ryu was the Cy Young favorite, and that wasn't even questioned. And since then, his ERA has ballooned in August and September. So you need that type of guy to step on the mound in the beginning of the game to be like, okay, we've got this for 6 innings. We can hand it to the bullpen. Our lineup is great. That's good. And then on the other side, Kenley Jansen, because Jansen's numbers haven't been great either. Over 5 ERA in July and August. It's easy to look past that when the Dodgers are winning as many games as they are. You think, okay, no one's really struggling. But Jansen has been struggling mightily. 10 of 15 save opportunities since July. You got to secure it in the front, secure it in the back. The lineup will take care of things. Offense will win you games. Pitching wins you championships.
I really love that you brought up pitching wins you championships because there's one team in this postseason that needs it most, and that would be the New York Yankees. Let me throw you some numbers real quick. Masahiro Tanaka's ERA, 4.45, 6.16 road ERA. That's not going to win you postseason games. J.A. Happ, 4.91. James Paxton, even though he's had an elite 2 months, these past 2 months, 3.82. Those aren't really typical ace numbers you want from a guy that is going to start for you game 1 in the ALDS. So for me, the most important player has got to be Luis Severino. If you can get him back at 100%, throwing with the gas he has and the stuff that he has, I mean, that's putting you in a pretty good spot to succeed in the playoffs. I'm looking ahead towards if they eventually play the Astros. The Astros have it all. They have an elite hitting core. They have an elite rotation. They have an above-average bullpen. You need to compete with that, and they have the batting to do it. But I think the rotation cannot hang with the Astros. But if they get Severino back, it at least gives them a chance to try and counteract what the Astros are throwing at them.
I think that's a great point, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just wonder if the Yankees view Luis Severino as the next factor. Because not too long ago, Brian Cashman said, well, if we traded for Marcus Stroman, he would have been a bullpen guy. I don't know if he's been watching the same games that we all have, but that starting rotation has not been good whatsoever.
Not at all.
So you talk about, and I said pitching wins championships. Yeah, for the Yankees, that's it, because they have a great lineup. You can talk about the guys that they have all day long, Gleyber Torres, Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez. You name them, they got it. But when it comes to Luis Severino, yeah, you're right. They need a guy to step on the mound and mark down a W. I don't know if they have that right now. Tanaka's inconsistent. Paxton's not great. So for the Yankees to be like, yeah, he'd be in our bullpen, I feel like that might be the most naive and ignorant statement I've ever heard. It's just them saying, we didn't want to trade top prospects because they never do. So, yeah, it's a good point.
No, and I mean, what you were saying about the Dodgers, they also have a pretty good lineup themselves. They've had a kind of next man up mentality when Corey Seager was out. They had guys like, Will Smith, Gavin Lux come up, and Alex Verdugo. They've had a lot of young guys step up and carry that lineup. And you bring up the point about Clayton Kershaw. Yeah, he's been bad, but they have Walker Buehler now too, and he's been dealing a majority of the season. So if you can't rely on Clayton Kershaw, I feel as though you can at least rely on Walker Buehler. There is not another guy in that Yankees rotation that you can look at and say, I trust this man in a spot where he can succeed.
I feel like more to my point about the Dodgers is not so much concerned about the NL, only because the rest of the NL, only because that's never really been their issue when they get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
When they get to the World Series, presumably, let's talk about the Astros being there because they're the most loaded roster. Yeah, Walker Buehler has been great, but you're going to go up against Zach Greinke, Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole. Good luck if you think that you're only going to need Walker Buehler. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting here thinking, how did we lose 3 in a row? How did we do that? Because it's pretty simple.
Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching Off the Bench. For more content, check out our website, WEBN.TV, and follow us on Twitter at WEBN Sports. For Andrew Carter and Ryan Ribeiro, I'm Avi Kargloth. Good night. Not bad.
Yeah, pretty good.
You guys just kept talking.